And then we can come back and talk about all the stuff we didn't talk about.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. So today we are going to be talking about pranayama. And I would like to know, what is it that you guys have heard about pranayama? What do you think that pranayama is?
I just know breath work, right?
Okay. Yep.
So.
Is that your understanding? Have you heard of pranayama before? Kind of a
I've
little
only
vague.
heard you say it, but I don't have an attachment to it. I don't
Okay.
have a definition.
Okay, so this is a really interesting limb because pranayama is taught as breath work, and pranayama is also taught as expansion of life force. It's both. So if you break down the word pranayama, you come up with prana, and we've all heard of prana, right? Prana, chi, ki, energy, life force, universal life force. And then yama, which is to control. So we can consider that the breath is also our life force. And so we're trying to control that breath work, that life force there. Or if you do Ayama, A-Y-A-M-A, that means that it is to expand. So maybe it's to expand our life force. And so it is I believe, this particular limb there's so much depth to it that you are tending to use the breath to help connect the mind and the body, bridging that gap into the mind through the breath, utilizing the breath to help us to be able to control our experiences, as we'll learn how it controls different functions of the body and different moods or feelings that we have. And yet we're also using it to expand our own individual life force by either clearing out toxins physically or emotionally or mentally, different stagnant energies that we might have. We can use the breath to remove those out of the body and out of the energy bodies. And that in itself will expand the life force. Or bringing in things that will provide us with prana. This moves into more of the nadis and the chakras. So I've mentioned briefly the Pingalas, the Sushumna, the nadis, the meridian lines. So this all kind of ties in together in this one limb. So we're going to be introducing some of the ideas that this limb provides, but in your own personal study, you can take it in many different directions and learn so many different things about pranayama. Okay, so we'll just do a little bit of understanding of the different sides that it does for us. So it is the regulation and enhancement of the subtle life force currents, which is prana, through which we move into subtler realms, which would be energy bodies, consciousness, spirit, of our awareness. And it is interpreted as breathing exercises, but it is so much more than that.
Can you repeat that?
Pranayama is the regulation and enhancement of the subtle life force currents, which are prana, through which we move into subtler realms of awareness. So that could be, your energy bodies, higher self. It is interpreted as breathing exercises, but it really is so much more than that.
Higher self or what else?
Anything that has to do with so it moves
You
us
used
from
two
the
words. You said higher self, something right before higher self moves you into
your energy body. So anything that moves us in from our physical body, it can move us into our chakra system, it can move us into our energy bodies, it can move us into our higher self, it can move us into the connection with source, it can move us into higher levels of awareness or consciousness. So that's where it moves us more from the physical to the spiritual or mental.
Okay.
Yeah. So where it says that yama means to control, ayama means to expand. So the first part of that word pran or prana is life force, and either you break it down meaning to control or to expand. And this is a quote from the True Yoga book that I have shared with you before by Jennie Lee. And she says that when the word pranayama is split as prana and yama, yama means to control, but when it is split as pran and ayama, ayama means to expand. So essentially the practice of pranayama is the science of both controlling and expanding the energy that activates and organizes our physical bodies. And the last part of that is where I found the most value for me, because what we don't really see a lot of the time is that the breath is something that you can see and not see at the same time, right? We can watch the body move, but yet we can't actually see the breath. We can see how the breath affects the body, but the breath itself is invisible. So it has that visible and invisible quality. And what we see is that the outside, or the external part of our being, which would be like the energy bodies moving into the more dense physical body. That's where she says that the energy that activates and organizes our physical body is what we're using to change or to move when we use our breath. So the physical body is impacted even though we may not always be able to see that. And it organizes the mental and the emotional and the spiritual, which actually creates the physical that we see. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to take it from, because we know a little bit about the breath work. We've been practicing the breath work along with this practice, this 21-day practice. So we've tried a couple different types of breathing techniques, and there's so many that are out there. So every single one of them, depending on how you hold the breath, how you suspend the breath, how quickly you breathe or how slowly you breathe, you're affecting different parts or different organs. You're doing a different cleanse. There's some that are meant to calm and relax, which is the most common. But there's also breaths that we're going to be learning coming up in this program. There's breath works that are meant to energize. So we can use the breath in itself to help us relax and calm if we're finding we're having a stressful day or we're having anxiety. Doing the alternate nostril breathing, calming the nervous system. So we've been learning a couple of different techniques that help calm the body, that helps to calm the organs. We're calm the central nervous system. We're going to be learning a couple of the different breath works that are going to be activating or firing up our body. So when we're a little sluggish or tired, we can use a breath work that will help invigorate us.
What is that?
We're going to be doing some Agni breath.
Is that what we're doing today?
No, we're not going to be doing, and we're not practicing any breath work today.
Okay.
We're just going to be discussing what pranayama is. But I think that the next class that we do breath work will be Agni breath. And that's breath of fire. Fire, Agni. A-G-N-I. Yeah.
Okay.
A-G-N-I, Agni, meaning fire, breath of fire. So there's a lot of different types of breath work out there. We can help control our moods just by the breath. We can notice when we're becoming stressed. We can notice when we are moving into fear just by our breath changing, maybe becoming more erratic or shallow, maybe even holding. That could be tied into the fight, flight, or freeze. So our breath really gives us a lot of indication of where we are mentally and emotionally.
What's it mean? I don't know if this is part of that, but like when you are like doing your breath and you're like shaking with your breath, what does that?
You're erratic. The breath is erratic. Usually that means that there's a lot of compression. So we're going to practice to see what our breath is telling us today, and then kind of where we can move from out of either that that erratic breathing into more of a smooth breathing. Sometimes it can be in a physical sense, it could be your diaphragm muscle that is too tight. So as you're trying to expand past the limitation of the tightness of that muscle, just like if you have a leg muscle and you're trying to move it and it doesn't want to move because it's really tight, the same thing happens with the diaphragm muscle. So it could be something that's being held in the diaphragm muscle, or it could just be that the lungs themselves need work to be able to start expanding. There might be scar tissue in the lungs. There might be some asthma or something from an illness or something from a cold. So it could be in the lungs, it could be in the muscle structure, it could be in any of those things. It could be a mental belief system that says that, you know, you've been stuck in this maybe trauma and your body is having a hard time just expanding and opening and breathing. So it can come from a lot of different things. You have to back it up and figure out exactly where that comes from. Yeah. And then do exercises to help it to open up and to release. So I want to ask you guys, where do you feel you can receive prana?
Definitely in anxiety situations.
Prana is life force.
Oh, so we're not talking about breath.
Well, right. We're talking about both. We're kind of going back and forth, but we're talking about the prana.
Where we can find it?
Where can you find prana? Where can you get prana?
Like you're just saying anywhere that we are.
Oh, any
Just go with it.
Okay.
So go within.
A lot of times when I'm walking
Yes.
by myself, walking or biking or doing a practice by myself.
Okay.
A lot of it is when I can really focus on things, you know, and because if you're talking with people, you know, you're breathing, you're walking. It's great exercise, but you're not focusing on your breath.
Okay.
So, sorry, I'm catching my breath. When you're alone, I think you can really focus on it more.
Prana. Okay.
So,
Do you have any idea of where you can receive prana from?
Well, I'm just trying to think because we were talking about breath and then now we're talking about life's force. So, and we're connecting the mind and body, right? Well, I know that when I do it at bed at night.
Okay, so if prana means universal life energy, and your breath helps expand that universal life energy, and the breath is an energy of life, and prana is an energy of life. They're kind of one and the same, and yet they're different. But where would you experience in receiving prana?
Receiving it?
Where can you find prana?
Reiki?
Yeah, go there. Energy work.
Oh, energy work? I was thinking like, I don't know, because like at night when I lay down in bed, like that's when I kind of like do my own meditation and I do my breathing techniques and stuff. So I was thinking that.
Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm taking you guys outside of this. We think that prana is something that's only internal. Prana is everywhere. Going into nature, you are absorbing prana. Constantly. Being the sun, the energy of the sun provides you with prana. Doing a meditation and connecting with spirit or your higher selves expands your life force energy, running through your meridian lines, running through your chakra system, clearing things out. Everything has life force energy. Every living thing has life force energy. Everything has energy, but every living thing has life force energy. So you can absorb prana from everywhere. Everywhere. Connecting to earth, using your root chakra, connecting to ground, connecting that and connecting it to the core. That brings in life force energy.
there's moments all day long. If you stop and just breathe in and like, you know.
What about the food that we eat? If we eat foods that are living foods that have the prana in it.
Yes, excellent food, yes.
What about our waters? The waters, like Angel Fire water, I know specifically, is charged with specific, the way that it's structured gives life-giving fuel to your body. You're absorbing everything that you put in your body, put on your body, around your body, in your environment. What about like a healthy environment? Just a really peaceful, serene environment. Prana. salt lamps,
Work.
sauna, work, prana. So sunlight, clean water, living foods, all natural surroundings, everything provides you with prana. Plants, just having plants in your environment, in your home, provide you with prana. So that helps us connect. I mean, yes, it's a breath thing, and yes, it's an energy thing, but they are one and the same, and yet they're different. And showing that dynamic, you are finding that everything that you connect with is going to expand your energy, but doing the breath work is also going to expand your energy. So you have a couple different ways of really enhancing, your auric fields, keeping them strong, keeping them healthy, keeping them balanced through breath and through prana. So we're going to do a little exercise. I'm going to have you close your eyes. We're going to notice how our breath is. So I want you to create a nice tall spine here to open up your abdomen. Okay, so really sit tall so that your abdomen can move with your breath. Roll your shoulders back so that you're not hunched over, restricting your shoulders or your sternum here. Sit nice and tall, elongate your spine so you're clearing out your throat, and just take a breath in. It doesn't have, whatever you want to do. It can be deep, it can be shallow. I want you to connect with your breath as it is right now, and I just want you to witness, I just want you to notice. So how is that feeling to you? Is it quick? Or is it a long inhalation and a short exhalation? Count it out. See what it is for you. This is your breath every day. Whether you're not really trying to control it, it's just natural. Is it hard to breathe? Or is it really easy? Do you find that your abdomen and your chest rise, or just your chest, or just your abdomen? Is it kind of shaky or erratic, or is it really smooth? Do you feel it coming in both nostrils or just one? And when you feel that breath come into your body, where do you feel the breath go? And as you're focusing on the breath, it's starting to change. So make note of the changes as you become aware. Notice if there are any pauses in your breath. Maybe there's a pause before the exhalation, or a pause before the inhalation. Now open your eyes and just write down what you experienced. And get into some detail. Everything that you can remember about how your breath was when you came into this exercise. So from beginning to end, how it may have changed, where you found it in the body. So how is your breath?
I felt like mine was kind of tight and that it was somewhat shallow. I felt it more in my chest and upper back. And then when I started counting, it was like 2 counts in, 2 counts out. Then it would kind of pause, and then it would go to 2 and 2, pause. And just kind of feels like, I guess, like a weak breath until I do like a...
Yeah, till you do a really deep breath.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's all I got.
Good. And there's no right or wrong. It's all we're doing is just right now is we're witnessing. And I wanted you to write it out in detail because I want you to come back to this at some point to see how your breath may have changed with the breath work that we're doing. And the exercise that you're going to go home with today is to do a breath work exercise. You can choose one that you find or choose one that we've done through class, and see how you feel different, and then compare what you experienced today without really doing any other breath work, but just on a natural breathing rhythm, what your body is doing and how that may connect to a mental state. So you can take it even further and just go, this is what I was thinking or feeling while I was doing my observation of breathing, and how that connects. You know, and then maybe do a breathwork exercise and come back and reevaluate and see how things have changed, and where you are in a mental state after that. Because, like I said before, it does really, the mind can control the breath and the breath can control the mind. I mean, you have that duality there. If you're feeling anxiousness, you can use the breath to bring you into a state of peace. You know. Or vice versa, if you feel like, you know, your breath is really crazy and it's kind of go into the mind and say, okay, well, where is this coming from? Once you kind of calm down and say, well, do I really need to believe or think or feel, or, you know, what are my choices and options? Let me take a back seat for a moment and see what's in front of me. Then all of a sudden you can start to calm, relax, and your breath starts to change and it comes back into an even breath. So,
sorry, I think that's the problem though. Like, when you start focusing on it, then you almost try to start changing it.
Yeah,
like,
oh, absolutely, instantly.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's part of the process. There's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. So I know that like I said, we did some breathwork exercises. Did you guys notice any changes in your breath throughout the day, maybe, after doing some of our breathwork exercises?
I know I still am using the very first one that we learned. I just love that one, and I find it, because I do have high anxiety and things, I just really love it to help bring me down to like calmness from being in those anxious vibes.
I think being able to focus on the breath is almost like a nice distraction from whatever might be bothering you. You can think about it clearer too, but it takes the focus off something else.
Yeah.
You don't always have to focus on whatever is making you anxious, and so it's nice to be able to just focus where it's going, and then it does reset. So
yeah, and I think I had told you guys once before, Eckhart Tolle had said that if you ask yourself the question, am I still breathing? Silliest question, right? Am I still breathing? That embodies you quickly. Right then and there. If you feel like you're spacey, if you feel like a little anxious, or if you're feeling like you're not connecting with yourself, if you just ask yourself, am I still breathing? You totally embody. So if you just need to ask yourself that a couple times in a row, you will come to center, you will come to ground.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that when I stop breathing. It's like,
well, you're still standing.
Right.
I
I think that's what fear does, though. I mean, we do our, you know, and I've dealt with it for years, of panic attacks, all that stuff. But when you're in the midst of it, you almost feel like you are, like everything's going to stop. You know, like your world is just going to fall apart, stop, right, everything. And but you are still breathing, but you forget all of that because you're in a different erratic state. You know, your mind's telling you that you can't function, you know, but you are. And so to be able to come back to that and say, well, I am breathing. You know, I've never, even in the worst panic attack, I've never stopped breathing.
Right.
You know, so looking back on it, it's much easier, obviously, to talk about. When you're in the midst of it, it's very hard. But just to stop yourself and say, yes, I am still breathing. And then maybe you can just start a small breathing and it will just get you out of it enough to move on further.
Yeah, well, I just find myself holding it though. It's not even, I won't even be in a panic or anything. I might just be sitting up at the desk doing some work and all of a sudden I realize I've been holding my breath and I'm like, ah.
I think that's normal.
Yeah, like what is that about? I don't know why.
That's
Yeah,
just
maybe
normal.
it's just like, but it's supposed to be such a natural thing that.
Well, that's where we could do some additional work and really figure out where that is causing. So it might be just such a shallow breath.
Right, that I'm just not even noticing it.
Or you could technically be holding your breath.
Yeah, I know I do a lot, especially like say if I'm doing like a Reiki or something like that. I seem to hold my breath even more.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be like, like all over.
So actually, yeah, you need to learn how to breathe so that you can go with the flow and allow that to happen. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can move into as far as like analyzing the breath. You know, and you can kind of, even if you just do some of the own self-study and kind of ask yourself, you know, where am I or why am I even holding my breath? You may be able to meditate on something and come to an answer that would suit for you. I would start there first because it could be a very simple solution.
Right.
And just see what your higher self has to say. But I find it that, you know, coming into that, the breath is the only thing that is involuntary and that is voluntary at the same time. Like we can control it and yet it has its own control. Like that's the only element that is like that. So it says that breathing is the only bodily function that you perform consciously and unconsciously. It can be voluntary or involuntary. And that breath is the bridge between the physical and the mental. And what I find interesting is that the breath, the lungs, right, are right in the center with the heart center. And so it says that the breath is the bridge between the physical and the mental. The lower chakras, the root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus chakra, those are the physical. Those are the issues or things that connect us to this physical reality. That's the physicality. You come into the heart center, and the heart, the unconscious love, the breath, the air, which is the element of air, that moves us into the higher chakras, which are the mental and spiritual of the throat, the third eye, and the crown. So those are the mental belief systems, or the your mind, or that knowingness connecting to levels of consciousness that is where we pull all kinds of information, intuit. We intuit and connect with source. So when it says that that's the bridge, the heart center is the bridge between the lower physical chakras and the higher spiritual chakras. And that is what helps the breath, the prana, is what helps our energy system of the meridians, the chakra system. We can send breath to any part of our body. I've actually felt breath come into somebody's leg before, into their foot. And you're going, well, how is that even possible? The whole body breathes. The whole body expands and contracts with the breath. The whole body will get a little bit taller and wider as it breathes and takes on air, and then it'll all kind of just shorten and thin out a little bit as the breath comes out. The whole body moves. So when you have any type of trauma, injury, anything that happens to the physical body, when you hear the term, I've had the breath knocked out of me, that's literal. Sometimes it's in the diaphragm area, but it can be in any part. It can be in your elbow. And so when I've worked with people, I've actually felt the breath come back into that area of their body. I see it actually start to move, or I can feel the movement come in. Yeah. So the breath really affects everything with us. So I would like to move a little bit into the energy part of this and work with the bandhas. I know I mentioned the bandhas yesterday. So I have here today the actual names of those bandhas so that you can do a little bit more research for yourselves.
What is the word you're using?
Bandhas, energy locks, or breath locks.
B-O-N-D-A?
B-A-N-D-H-A-S.
Bandhas.
Yeah, bandhas.
And they are energy locks?
They're like when we discussed yesterday, it's to lock out the breath. We used the root lock yesterday in our breath work. So we used the root lock, we brought that breath in, then we put our tongue to the palate. Remember? And so when we were talking about the different bandhas, there's 3 of them. So there's the Mula Bandha, which is the root lock, M-U-L-A. And that's the sex organs, anus, and pelvic floor. You lock that out. Then you come up into the high abdomen, right where the solar plexus would be. And that one is I'm going to say it's Uddiyana. It's Uddiyana.
Where's that one located again?
That's right here. So you would actually pull and bring in the abdomen up underneath the ribs. And you suck that in and hold that in. And that's the second one right here at the solar plexus.
And the bandhas.
Mm-hmm.
That one was the root one.
The root lock is Mula.
Mula.
M-U-L-A. Because that's also called Muladhara. Muladhara is the Sanskrit for the root chakra. So it's Mula Bandha.
I'm sure you know this, but I learned that they use Sanskrit because it's a dead language, so there's no meaning or affiliation with it.
I don't know if I've heard that.
Because it's like, why are we using Sanskrit when nobody knows the language?
Mm-hmm.
And Deepak says it's because it's a dead language. It's neutral.
Well, that could be that it's very neutral, but I've also heard that because in that language, well, like with any language, so if you use our language, for example, all of our letters have a vibration. So when you put that vibration together and you form a word, you have a direct energetic reaction or feeling or sense when you use the word hate and when you use the word love. Just like when they did the scientific experiment on plants, using hateful words brought that energy down to where it deadened the plant. Using loving, kind, and compassionate words helped that thrive. So Sanskrit could be neutral, but it also has a vibration. And the letters that are associated with the words and how they're formulated have a vibration. So it could be that the vibration that we're connecting with, just like in other forms, like I would say Reiki, we have symbols. Yes, the kanji has a name, but we don't really use the name so much as we use the symbol, because the symbol holds the energy, or that helps us get to the energy that we're looking to connect with. Like the word stop or a stop sign, symbolism, but there's still an energy. We know what to do. We know how to proceed. So I'm going to say that because it's something that you can vocalize and we have the vibration, there's something to the word through vibration and resonance, even if the language itself is not, is more neutral. Yeah. I would like to look into that a little bit more myself, actually, because that's interesting. It's really interesting. So the second one was the Uddiyana. Then we have the last one, which is it's Halandara. I don't even know how to say this. Jalandhara. Halandara. I read these things and I never really pronounce them out. I usually just say throat lock. Okay, so Halandara Bandha, and it's Jalandhara. And so with that one, it's just tucking the chin. Okay, when you tuck the chin, you lock the air or the energy of the throat chakra. You can also pull that up and lock it like this, and you're actually pulling that chin in. That's more of a lock. But if you're doing like a softer, just like locking your chin here, if you're doing like a light breath work, you can just lock it. Or if you're doing more advanced techniques, you're going to pull it in and lock it. So those are the 3 bandhas. And that's how in more of the advanced techniques of breath work, they force the breath to go to specific places or hold it in specific places. So moving into the chakra system, because as we can see, that kind of really correlates with where they're holding the breath, where they're creating those locks, those energetic locks, how the breath is responding to our energetic bodies, our energy systems. The chakras, which you guys have heard me talk about, the breath comes in and actually activates and helps to open up or to clear out those energy centers, the root chakra, the sacral chakra. When we breathe, and some people, as you may notice, you only maybe breathe from the top portion of the body. Is that breath really coming all the way down? As sometimes we are instructed in yoga class to bring that breath all the way down into the root center, to really bring that breath all the way down into the low belly. A lot of the time, our breath stops right here.
Yeah, it's hard to get it done with the belly.
What's restricting that? Yeah. Is it a physical, structural restriction? Is it an emotional, mental restriction? Send the breath down there, start unlocking some things and find out. Let it go, right? So sending that breath all the way down, really expanding in the hips. You know, Sadie Nardini, I learned how to do that, the golden flame breath. Imagine a golden flame at the base of your pelvis, sitting right above the perineum, right between the anus and the genitals, right at the base, right where your root chakra would actually reside. Some people say it starts at the coccyx, but it's really at the space between the genitals and the anus. So right above that, imagine a flame sitting there. And this golden flame, as you take that breath in, that flame gets wider and fatter, opening, expanding the hips, softening the hips. And then you're going to squeeze those low muscles where you would get that root lock. You would start to activate those muscles, contracting those muscles to send that breath up through the belly, up out the nose. And as you restrict that and you start to push that out, the flame gets taller and skinnier. And then you take another breath in, you relax those muscles, the flame becomes wider, shorter and wider, softening the hips. And then you restrict those muscles and push the air up and out, and that flame becomes taller and skinnier again. So that's a visual to help you get that breath down really deep into almost the root, where you need to expand the whole body. Clear out all the centers there.
I feel like tucking the chin would be the hardest one because I can feel the others I can tighten, lock
But where
it in.
do you have your restriction?
I know, but I feel like it's like harder to know when it's locked in, is what I'm saying. Like, you tuck it, I can't feel it the same as like you feeling your abdomen, that one feels much stronger, you know what I mean?
Pull it in and start to take a breath in. Pull. Lock that so that there's no space, hardly any space in your esophagus.
Yeah, it's just harder to do.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's just a trickier move, I think. But
yeah, so that's something. Once you're like, for me, a little bit in the belly, but I have a lot of sometimes restriction because of my job and stuff. I have to work on expanding this part of my body. So for me I've watched people pull and tuck in their bellies and their whole belly's up underneath their ribs. Mm-hmm. I'm like, nope, that's not going there. But I have to move. If it was loose and there wasn't a lot of like tightness in the area, it would be easier. But that's my job, so that's where I have to work. Here, I can bring that in, and it's really hard for me to bring a breath in when I get that lock. It'll come in, but it's barely coming in.
I'll work on it.
Yeah, but that's where you hold a lot of restriction in your body, as you've come to to find out. So here we have a little bit of a breakdown. The pranayama is the cultivation and mindful use of our life force. I like the term mindful use of our life force.
Breakdown in?
It's the pranayama is the cultivation and mindful use of life force. And becoming more aware of this connection between the breath and the mind, we gain the ability to use the breath to calm our thoughts and improve our concentration. We gain a skill when we're aware of our breath. We are able to develop, to use the breath, to note disturbances in the mind. allowing us to see and shift unhealthy thought patterns before they become entrenched or a part of our belief systems. So being aware of how our breath is being, you know, in a state, either around people or in an environment or during a certain issue.
Can I say something? So there's this one thing that I've noticed, and I'm very I'll listen to everything. Like anybody has something they need to say, tell me. I'm really good at just listening to whatever. Just let it all, whatever. But I've noticed just through this whole thing that I almost, which isn't, I don't know if it's a good thing. It's like if I hear the complaints coming towards me, I almost feel like I just want, do you know what I mean? And I feel bad because I want to be there and listen like I always do, but for some reason I'm also feeling this like shield or something. Like I don't know if I want to hear this. So it's I'm kind of in conflict there.
And I can understand that, and I can relate to a degree. I mean, it does. You'll find that as you do more of this work, you'll be able to come to a place where you're just observing what that person is saying, and you will not get an emotional attachment.
Yeah, and I'm feeling that. It's a weird kind of thing.
It is, because you're becoming aware of the energies, of your energy, of how your energy is being influenced by your environment or other people,
or how you're contributing or fueling that fire.
Yes, and that was one of the niyamas. That was one of the niyamas. Are you a flame fanner or are you a fire extinguisher?
I'm a fire extinguisher.
Oh,
but when you hear it, and sometimes I feel like, you know.
But is that a role that you still want to be in? I'm
okay, but I do definitely feel like this more observance kind of thing, more shielding. Like that's okay. I can listen and talk about it, but I just feel like I have this. Don't mess with my good space.
Yeah, you know? I like my good space. Yeah, and you might want to take a look a little bit, and when you're doing your self-reflection, and you may be okay with taking care of other people's issues a lot of the time, but is how much of that is coming into your peace, and are you taking that lesson away from them by helping them out or helping them in removing that fire?
Usually,
and stuff like that.
It's just a very interesting observance.
It is, yeah. So you can go pretty deep with it too, because now you're noticing how it affects you and how you're going to be responding. Yeah, really interesting. So it helps us to become aware of the disturbances of the mind and allows us to shift before any unhealthy thoughts come into or take hold. So when we find patterns in our breathing, as you have noticed a little bit, patterns are indicators of mind and body health. We kind of covered what those could be. And that we are able to control our experiences through the control of our breath. So when we're able to remain calm in a chaotic situation, and we're not reacting, but becoming responders or observers, it changes our experience, because we're not getting into the middle of it and getting all hyped up ourselves. Or when we are walking through nature, instead of just walking and just walking and just kind of being in our heads the whole time, and we're able to calm our breath is grounding us and helping us expand through our vision and absorb the prana. So there is a little bit of an awareness piece, but using the breath to calm, all of a sudden you're becoming aware of your surroundings instead of being in your head. And I would say that for me, controlling the breath in that manner, calming the breath, you're using the heart center. When you're using the heart center and you're working from the heart of the unconditional love, and that bridge between the physical and the mental, the spiritual, that's when your awareness becomes you're more aware of your surroundings, you're more aware of where you are. You move into this space of unconditional love. You move into compassion. And using the breath, when our breath is nice and relaxed, it actually helps take the stress and pressure off of our internal organs. And if we take that off of our internal organs, then we're going to have a longer lifespan. They've compared it to the quick breathing of maybe a rabbit and the slower breath of maybe a turtle. You can see there, that's nature, but the breath, slower moving, slower breath, longer lifespan. Easier on the body, easier on the heart, lowers the blood pressure. Heart doesn't have to work so hard. So it controls everything in our experience. So the benefits decreases the stress on the organs and the cortisol levels of the body. It increases our lifespan, and it controls the energy states or feeling states that we have.
Increases or decreases cortisol level?
Decreases.
What does cortisol level do?
That is through the system of the adrenals.
Isn't it when you get stressed, then it produces more?
And they can produce too much, and then they can burn out.
Yeah.
So if you've ever heard of adrenal fatigue. So there's two. One is the sutra, and one is a quote that I'd like to share. So in the sutra, which is where these 8 limbs they come from through Patanjali, Patanjali says that through pranayama, the veil over the inner light is destroyed, and the mind becomes fit for concentration. So the veil over the inner light is destroyed, and the mind becomes fit for concentration. So in other words, they said that the greater mindfulness and control of the breath, we reduce the distractions and disturbances that prevent us from experiencing our inherent joy and peace.
I lost all of that. I got to destroyed.
Was it the veil over the inner light?
Yeah.
Light.
The inner light is destroyed.
The mind becomes fit for
Concentration.
Thank you.
That was the quote.
Mm-hmm. That's the sutra. So it helps removes the disturbances of the mind. It helps to remove the disturbances of the mind so that we can be in our happiness, or in our joy, in our peace. The quote that I have is from Swami Vivekananda, and it's, "Prana is the driving power of the world. It can be seen in every manifestation of life." So prana is the driving force of the world, and it can be seen in every manifestation of life. So as we can see, pranayama is a lot more than just breath techniques. It's a lot more than just controlling the breath. It's a lot more than just doing ujjayi or alternate nostril. It really is our individual and collective life force energy, and how we are able to use that in this experience, how we are able to harness it, how we are able to expand it, how we're able to control our experiences through using our breath and expanding our life force energy, keeping our life force energy strong and healthy so that we're not susceptible to illness, disease, or lower vibrational energies that are not in harmony with us physically, personally. Everybody carries a different vibration. Everybody's makeup, genetically, energetically, we all resonate we all resonate together, but we all have a little bit of a different signature in resonation. And so how we resonate with something may be different than how someone else may resonate with something. And so keeping our life force energy and our system, energetic system and physical body strong and healthy helps to keep us in harmony, helps us keep us in our resonance, so that our auric fields are strong, so they cannot be penetrated by outside influences that are not good for us. Using the breath to be able to sustain and to remain calm in mind and body, or to be able to force out things that we have taken on that no longer serve us or that are not part of us. So the homework for today was to do a breath practice and see how you feel afterwards. Observe how you're feeling before. Do a little scan. Do a breath practice of your own, choosing any one that you want, and then noting how you feel after that. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. All aspects, holistically. So do you guys have any questions? Because I know this is a really big topic. You can go on for days. Pranayama.
No, that's good. I mean, these are things that they're common sense, but at the same time, you're bringing them up, you're bringing them to light, and you just, with everything in life, it's good to have these reminders and these little moments. Oh yeah, that does work that way.
Yeah.
So, these are things that, people could say, oh, well, I know how to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
But when you talk about it and how it affects everything, and you get into the nitty gritty, there's just so much more that you can be aware of on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
It just helps.
Yes. And there's a difference between knowing something and experiencing something.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're bringing it to awareness, we're actually taking it on as an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it becomes part of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're able, and we move on and grow from there. And then we know something else, embody experience, and then we
Sometimes
continue.
you can almost sense it. You can see it in people where you can almost sense that they aren't expecting. Do you know?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
They're locked in a certain.
Yes.
And there's just like so much more, but they're locked in.
Yes.
You
I
can
do.
see it.
Yes, I do understand that. Yes. Okay. All right. So that is for pranayama today. Tomorrow we'll be doing another asana practice. So we'll need our mats tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.